Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, thank you so much for stopping by. My name is Courtney. I am so excited for today's video because it is a huge collaboration with some of my favorite DIY YouTubers. There are 7 of us in this collaboration. We each took an area in the home, so by the time you are done watching our playlist, you will have hopefully some fall inspiration for your house. Now, in this collaboration, there is Yami from the Latina next door. She pulled this together, so thank you so much for that, Yami. I'm so excited to be part of this. There's Shannon from the Daily DIYer, Jennifer from Little Bit of Common Crazy, Whitney from Whiskey and Whit, Kristen from Kristin Kay, and Jessica from Measure and Mix. I will have all of their channel links along with the playlist and the supplies I'm using today in the DIYs in the description box for you. Now, when you are done watching my video, please jump over and go see all of their videos. Drop the cowboy emoji because you guys know I'm from Texas, or the scissors, so that they can say hi to you. And if you are from any of their channels, I am so happy you're here. I hope you will consider sticking around. I love doing budget-friendly DIYs, upcycles, Dollar Tree hauls, Dollar Tree DIYs. I do have a Facebook group and Instagram. You can find monthly challenges, bonus DIYs, tips, tricks, and hacks for DIYs, as well as a little bit of my personal life on those platforms. So I would love to see you over there. And without further ado, I'm gonna take you into the kitchen and hopefully give you some fall inspiration for your home. Let's go. The first thing I'll be making is a solid wood Lazy Susan. I absolutely love making these. You can make them for less than $12 and they make great gifts for housewarming gifts, wedding gifts, Christmas gifts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the Annie Sloan chalk paint in Old White. Now if you didn't want to paint it, you certainly could stain this, but since I am painting it, I'm making sure to paint with the grain. And I did sand this with 220 grit sandpaper before I brought it inside the house. So you are going to want to give it a light sanding, but the wood is already pretty smooth. And once I get the paint on there, then I'm just going to let that dry and I will work on my stencil. All right, my stencil was made on the Cricut Maker. I will link down some free SVGs that I found. If you do not have a Cricut or a Silhouette, I did create a free printable, and you simply could just go old school and pencil on the back and then transfer the image down onto your Lazy Susan and then go ahead and just hand paint it in, use paint markers. Now, I will say this about stencils and wood. If you stain a piece of wood and put a stencil on and then paint on top, I never have an issue with that. It goes on great. I never have a problem. But when you paint wood and then try to put a stencil down and paint it, sometimes you may have bleeding. So to remedy that, before you put your stencil down, put a coat of Mod Podge down on your painted wood, let it dry really good, and then stick your stencil down. This will also help from keeping the stencil to pull up paint when you remove the stencil. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my stencil down. Now, I did not put Mod Podge on my piece of wood because I kind of didn't mind if it got distressed, and honestly, to be honest, I just didn't really think about it. So I got the stencil down and then I was like, never mind, it's too late now. And I did have a little bit of bleeding, but nothing that I couldn't fix with just a tiny paintbrush and some paint. So I'm going to get this on there and then I'm going to go ahead and start painting my stencil. I am ready to paint, so I'll be using the Pumpkin Waverly chalk paint, the Truffle chalk paint, the Fern Green Waverly chalk paint, and the Ink Waverly chalk paint. And I'm just going to go in and use regular paint brushes for this. Normally I do like to use the round little sponge brushes, but those do sometimes give a texture, and I don't want a texture on this, so I'm just going to go through and as light-handed as I can paint my stencil. I have pulled the stencil off, the paint is super dry, and now I'm ready to put on my clear satin poly. I will be using this and end up putting 2 coats on there. I did want it kind of shiny because, like I said, it's going on my kitchen table and I want to be able to wipe it down really well. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint on 1 coat going with the grain of the wood and then let that dry 24 hours, then give it a light sanding with 320 grit sandpaper, and then I will go back in and do another coat of the poly. Now, I did not paint the bottom side of my Lazy Susan because it is actually really close to the table and you will not see it, but I did seal the bottom just because, you know, if someone spills a drink on the table and it goes up underneath the Lazy Susan, I do want that protected. So like I said, you don't have to paint the bottom or stain it, but you can if you want to. So once this dries, again, I will just give it a sanding and then put on one more coat. Alright, let me show you the hardware you need. So for the Lazy Susan turntable, you need the ball bearing Lazy Susan turntable and the 6-inch. It needs to be the 6-inch, not the 4-inch. You will have an unstable Lazy Susan if you go smaller than 6-inch. You'll need some felt pads. I bought these at Home Depot along with that Lazy Susan hardware, but Dollar Tree does sell those. And you will also need some wood screws. These are the 3/4 inch flathead Phillips screws that you can screw into the back. So these are the 3 things you need to get the hardware installed onto your Lazy Susan. On your hardware, the side with these big holes is where the felt pads are going to go, and then as you can see, these holes are closer to the center. That's where the screws will go. So all I'm going to do to install the pads is I will just peel them off. They've got sticker paper on them. Now, if you wanted to give them a little extra security and put some super glue down and then stick these down, you certainly could, but I have never had a trouble or an issue with the pads coming off. And all you're going to do is just peel it off and then just kind of stick it up in the corner, not letting it overlap off of the hardware. It is kind of important that you get these placed all in the same spot, otherwise you might end up with a little bit of a wobble, but that can be fixed. You can pull them off and kind of reposition them. You just may need to use a new pad, but this is kind of the position, if you can see here once it focuses, of where it needs to go on the hardware. There you go. The pads are on and now it's time to install our hardware. So what you're going to do is place it down there and try to get it as centered as possible, making sure that it's, like I said, centered on the bottom of the Lazy Susan. And then I am going to take my drill and just drill a couple of little pilot holes, start it off, but this wood is kind of soft. I don't feel like it's necessary to use your drill to start the holes. You could certainly just start screwing it in with the screwdriver. And then once I drill my holes a little bit, I'm gonna just use my self-torquing screwdriver and screw the screws in, and then this beautiful Lazy Susan is finished. And here it is, all finished, ready to go. I did want to quickly say, which I forgot to mention, if your tabletop is super slick, instead of the felt pads, you're going to want to get the little rubber pads to keep it from sliding around. But otherwise, this Lazy Susan is good to go. For my second DIY, I'll be working with one of these plastic cutting boards from Dollar Tree. And I do not like how shiny it is, so I am just going to go on and paint one coat of this Waverly White chalk paint just to kind of take the sheen off of it. And then I will set that aside to dry so that I can start working on the recipe. The next thing is I'm going to take this free printable that I found online. I will link it down below. And I'm just going to cut out one of these recipes for pumpkin pie. They did have the option on the website that you could print it where you get 2 5x7s or 1 8.5x11. So I just chose this one because it fits really nicely on the cutting board. And when I'm done cutting this down, then I went through the scrapbook paper that I had, which I got all of it from Hobby Lobby, and tried to decide what I wanted to put behind it because this recipe will not fill up the entire cutting board. Now you certainly could resize it on your computer to get it to fill the entire thing, but I kind of liked having the scrapbook paper behind it. Then once I picked out my scrapbook paper, I'm just taking some regular little Elmer's glue stick and attaching my recipe to the scrapbook paper. And then to attach that, I'm going to use a thin coat of Mod Podge on the cutting board to attach the scrapbook paper and recipe. And then I'm gonna set it aside and let it dry overnight so that when I go back to seal it, I don't get bubbles. And fun fact, I do not like pumpkin pie. And 2 of my DIYs involve pumpkin pie. So there you go, a little tidbit about me. And then I'm going to quickly take this Mod Podge and just do a coat over the top because this is going in the kitchen, so I do want it to stay protected, but I am not going to actually be using it as a cutting board. And then once the Mod Podge is on, I'm going to work on some embellishments while this dries. Alright, and to embellish my cutting board, I'm going to use one of these wooden pumpkin stickers from Dollar Tree. I couldn't decide which one, but I end up, this one that I'm coloring is the one I used. And I'm just using my art markers that I got from Arteza. I absolutely love these things, and I'm just going to do some shading and get it how I want it to look. And then I'm going to take some twine and just wrap it around the top and the bottom of the cutting board. I am not going to glue it to it because with the back being blank, you could very easily make the back a Christmas recipe, perhaps fruitcake. I don't know anybody who likes fruitcake other than my mom. If you like fruitcake, tell me down below. I'm very curious to know if you like fruitcake. But anyway, you could certainly print whatever recipe on the back for Christmas, so by not securing the twine, you can spin it around or do what you need to make it look nice. And here it is. I just have it next to my little upcycle farmer's market project that I did. I do have a Dollar Tree version of that. If you're interested, I will link it. But I think it looks so cute and it turned out really, really good. And I probably definitely will turn the back into some sort of Christmas recipe. My third DIY has to do with pumpkin pie. So I don't know, it's just cute to look at. I don't know what else to say but that. So I picked up this felt from Hobby Lobby. This is the 33 cents. I got it when it was on sale, and it's a nice little pumpkin pie color. And then I have a template here that I found online. I will link it in the description box as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up with 4 pieces of pumpkin pie and 4 pieces of apple pie. So I'm just taking this template. Now you could do this many different ways as far as cutting out your triangles, but this is just how I chose to do it. And I'm just using my cutting board, my acrylic ruler, and my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to cut around this triangle, and then I will cut the triangle in half. My orange pieces are cut. Now this one is a little bit thicker. It's the 2mm, whereas the orange one is 1mm. I got it again at Hobby Lobby. And for the pumpkin pie crust, what you're going to want to do is, there's not really a template for it. Put your piece of pumpkin pie, or the orange triangle, whatever you want to call it, down on top of the tan, and then you're going to cut along the angle of the pie going up about 1 inch. And you'll notice that I put my edge of the triangle on the edge of the tan felt, and it works out great. So it was just easier to do it this way, and you have about 1 inch above the orange triangle. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. And then after you are done with that, you're going to take some scissors and basically just round off the edges to make a little crust shape. My felt together, I'm just going to be using some of this fabric hot glue, and I'm just going to kind of line the edge of the orange felt and then just stick it down on top of the tan. So for the whipped cream, I'm going to be using these medium-sized white pom-poms that I got from Hobby Lobby. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, as you can see, I'm like tearing it and just kind of fluffing it up a little bit just to give it a little more of a poofy, light, airy look. And then I'm just going to use regular hot glue instead of the fabric glue, and I'm just going to glue it right in the center of the pumpkin pie, and then these little slices of pie are finished. For the apple pie, you're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm just using this brown 1mm felt from Hobby Lobby, and I'll just put my template down, cut around it, and then cut it in half again, and I'll end up with 4 pieces of this brown felt. The crust for the apple pie is the exact same process as you did for the pumpkin pie, where you basically put your little piece down and then cut about 1 inch above it at a diagonal. So this is what you're going to do again for the apple pie. Once the crust is cut, then you're going to take this tan again, and you're basically going to cut 4 regular sized triangles just like you did for the orange and the brown, and this is what you're going to use to make your lattice work on your apple pie. And the last cut for this apple pie is to cut 4 strips again of this light tan felt. I cut them about 3/4 of an inch wide, and this is going to be to help kind of make more of a 3D crust on your pie. And here's a look at all the pieces we cut out to create our apple pie slice. Taking one of the large triangles that is the crust, we're going to take a brown triangle and go ahead and glue this down to the crust just like we did for the pumpkin pie. Then taking the small tan triangles, I'm going to cut them into strip, and you'll notice that I am not cutting the triangle straight up and down. It's kind of tilted to the right, so I am cutting it at an angle, and I'm just going to cut these about 1/4 of an inch wide, and this will eventually turn into the lattice for on top of our apple pie. Now it's time to work on the lattice. So what I did was I took 3 pieces and I basically started this way by putting those down first, and then I went with the cross pieces, just going over, under, over, under, over, under. And I'm not worried about them hanging off or anything like that. I actually did this and then I tacked them down with some hot glue, and then I went back and just very easily trimmed off all the extra little pieces hanging off the piece of the pie. Here is the last step to assemble this pie. So taking one of those strips that we cut at 3/4 inch wide, you're just gonna go here and where that gap is, or the extra piece that you left, you can see what I'm doing. Can you see what I'm doing? I hope. I don't know. You're basically just bending little folds, and then you'll tack it with hot glue. And then that will give you a little wavy appearance for the pie crust, and I think it turns out really, really cute. So I just kind of eyeballed it. At first I was trying to be fancy and use paper clips to hold it and get it all even and all this other stuff, but honestly, I mean, it's a piece of pie. I'm not a professional pie maker, so my pies don't look perfect when I make them, so I thought, you know what, let's just keep it real and I'll just kind of wing it. So that's what I did. Since this garland is going in my kitchen and it is a fabric, I am going to spray them with Scotch Guard to protect them from stains and smells and all that good stuff that the kitchen usually does to fabric. This is one of those hacks that I've shared with you guys before. I have fake flowers on my porch because I'm a serial plant killer, and I spray those and they last a really long time. So this is just one of those hacks that works really well. So basically I'm going to spray a good coat on there, let them dry really good, and then spray another one, and I end up doing 3 coats, and that way when I pack these away and open them up next year, they won't be smelly. The last step for this garland is to attach the twine, and so what I'm going to do is just use some of this fabric hot glue to put the twine on, but then I am going to go back with regular hot glue and put a piece of felt just to kind of secure this a little bit better. Now I will tell you this, if you are making a garland, you do not want to put your twine in the middle of the object, because that's what makes your garland kind of fall forward or it hangs weird. So just make sure that your twine is towards the top of the pie, and then you can figure out how far apart you want them. And then once that's all done, you just knot off the ends and you're ready to hang it up. Here it is hanging in my kitchen window. Unfortunately, the lighting doesn't do it justice because it is about to rain here, but it looks really, really cute in the kitchen, and I think it's a perfect little garland to just add that extra fall touch to your kitchen. This last DIY is super simple. So you're gonna need a 2-pack of these copper scourers from Dollar Tree. I hauled these quite a while ago. I've been hunting and hunting for these for months and finally found them. And then what you wanna do is go ahead and kind of fluff them up a little bit because they are flat, but this does stretch out quite easily. You just kind of have to work with it a little bit, but you will notice a difference if you kind of, as you can see here, the more you fluff it, the more it will just be more pumpkin-like. And then after you do that, take either a Dollar Tree stem if you happen to have any of those, which is what I'm using, or just go grab a twig from your front yard and you're just gonna hot glue that into the center of your little pumpkin. And then I'm just going to take my pinking shears here and this stiff green felt that I got from Arteza, and I'm going to cut some little leaves to add to the pumpkins. And then one of the pumpkins is going to get a little curlicue with some of the wire twine from Dollar Tree, and that's it. That's as simple as this DIY gets. And I ended up displaying these on this little pumpkin Dollar Tree cake stand that I made, and they look really cute next to the kitchen sink, I think, but they add a nice little pop of color right next to my sink. And there you go, 4 DIYs for your kitchen. Let me know down in the comments which DIY was your favorite. If you are visiting, I hope you will say hi so that I can say hi back. As always, thank you so much for supporting my channel and for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.